Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. This Monday night, April the 22nd, 2019. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope my regulars who are on board tonight had a nice weekend, a good Passover, and a good Easter. And now, of course, today we are back to a new work week, and looking ahead to what appears to be a bit of a calmer weather pattern going forward for at least this week anyway. Before we get started, I put a link up on the chat this evening. A few people along the way have asked me this from time to time, and if you are in the New York area at least, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, I did happen to notice, for those of you who might be interested in becoming National Weather Service spotters, there is a free 3-hour class that is going to be done on Monday, April 29th for Long Island in Nassau County at the Nassau County Office of Emergency Management. On Wednesday, May the 8th, it will be in New Haven County at the Wallingford Office of Emergency Management in Wallingford, Connecticut. And for those of you in New Jersey, there will be one at the Passaic County Public Safety Academy in the auditorium, and that is in Wayne, New Jersey, on Wednesday, May 29th. And these are all being done by the National Weather Service in Upton, which covers northern New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, the lower Hudson Valley, and parts of southwestern Connecticut. The link is up there on the chat. You can access it by going to weather.gov/OKX, and on the homepage, at the front, on the top of the homepage, you'll see where it says Skywarn, latest Skywarn training schedule. And actually, if you go to your local National Weather Service office page, they usually do put down a schedule of when they are teaching, when they are having these Skywarn classes. So if you're really into weather and you want to become a spotter and learn about what you need to know and do when it comes to taking observations and sending them back to the Weather Service, and also being a spotter in storm situations, it's a 3-hour class. It's absolutely free. I think there's a little quiz at the end, and if you get 70% or higher, you pass, and you're an NWS spotter. And they go a long way in helping out when it comes to dealing with storms and all the rest of it that we have to deal with for winter, spring, summer, and fall. Now, let's come back to reality and take a look at this satellite loop from late this afternoon. This is what is left of last week's storm that ran up from the southern Appalachians northward, came to a grinding halt somewhere in West Virginia, at least the upper low did. The weather front swung through, and now the upper low, which is finally weakening and moving eastward, has hooked up with a surface low that has developed, and they're kind of stacked one on top of each other. A very well-defined swirl there on the satellite loop. It's not a particularly deep low, but certainly has dynamics there enough that it produced so far anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches of rain along parts of the south shore of Long Island. Chris Alley, I know you're where you are on the south shore. You should have heard some thunder probably at around, 2 or 2:30 this afternoon. I was watching the radar echoes coming inland today, and there were numerous lightning strikes that occurred from Southampton westward to about or just west of Babylon, right along the shore. And I just was looking at West Hampton Beach's rainfall total as of 3 hours ago. I believe that they were at a little over an inch for the day. So I know they've probably gotten at least another couple of tenths or another 1/4 of an inch out of what we've seen so far. And again, very impressive here on the satellite. It's hard not to be impressed by this, even though it's not a very deep low. But you don't always need to have a pressure down at 990 or 980 to have some headaches, and this is what's happened today. Also, from watching this over the weekend and how really badly the models handled this to a large degree, none of them were far enough west with the western edge of the precip wall, which wound up going to the Pennsylvania-New York State border. So pretty impressive here with regards to this particular surface low. And here's what it looks like on the surface map itself. This is from 5 o'clock this afternoon. I mean, really, it's nothing much to write home about. It's a little low, 1,011 pressure, a little low, analyzed, kind of occluded out here. And it's not as if we have some sort of rip-roaring temperature gradient set up. Pressure gradient set up. We don't. It really isn't. The winds were pretty light all day, running at most at 10 to 15 miles an hour maybe. So this is really just this upper low, the surface low that developed on the old frontal boundary. When you get these lows that occlude out, this is what happens. It's part of the cycle. The first low comes up, occluded out, and wound up somewhere in West Virginia. Then you had this sweeping front that came through up from the southwest, if you remember. And at the point of occlusion, you have a second wave that develops, and that's what this is, really. And now that's going to occlude out, and another wave is going to probably form out to the east of it, finally getting this mess out of the way. It's a very narrow band of rain that's showing up on the radar right now over southern New England, the Hudson Valley to about Long Island. The rain that was over New Jersey is pretty well thinned out. Still getting some heavier downpours in interior Connecticut and throughout much of Massachusetts to the New York state line. This arm just kind of lifted up and around and really pushed its way much further to the north and west. This is the kind of thing that if you had it happen in the wintertime in a snow situation, could have been a real forecast disaster for a lot of folks. So this will wind down, we'll get it out of the way, and weather conditions are going to improve. Now, I'm going to come back to the radar in a moment because there's other weather going on, obviously, but I wanted to at least, let's address what's happening across the United States today, and there really isn't all that much with regards to active weather going on. We've got some flood watches up for parts of Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, a few counties there up in North Texas. Also have flood watches up in the northern parts of Wisconsin. Still getting various flood advisories and flood warnings from river flooding from snowmelt, but the rivers up to the north still running pretty high in the northern plains and also in parts of the Rockies. But other than that, really, there isn't a whole lot going on. And from the standpoint of severe weather tonight, the Storm Prediction Center isn't really showing very much with regards to risk for tonight. We have a slight risk being indicated across parts of north and northwest Texas, encased inside an area of marginal risk. And we also have an area of marginal risk in northern Illinois, the southern half of Wisconsin, and parts of eastern Iowa. So that's really it. It's pretty quiet, just a couple of general thunderstorm areas that are shown, but that's it. And even over the next few days, much of the risk area is going to be across Texas. It's not going to be like we don't see any sign of it being anything remotely like last week with regards to seeing the extent of severe weather pop up in the long range and dealing with wrapped up low. That's just not going to be the case this time around. So here's what it looks from the standpoint of WPC's outlook for rain over the next 7 days. And let me shrink this up a little so you can see it with the legend. So where you see that area in much of Texas, much of the state of Texas, except for the south, getting many inches of rain over the next 7 days, 3, 4, 5 inch rain amounts, and a little streak there across Louisiana and dotting parts of the Gulf Coast. Also, an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half of rain in central and northern New England. And then you've got that rain that goes back through the northern lakes and into Minnesota. And then it thins out as you go out further to the west even up into the Pacific Northwest, we're looking at rainfall amounts on the order of a half an inch or less. So in general, the activity this week is really calming down in the U.S. in general, and we're due a breather after seeing these major systems of the last couple of weeks impact much of the area east of the Rockies. And here's the satellite loop, the full U.S. satellite loop, so you can see everything in perspective from the low off the East Coast, the swirl with the big arm that goes down in the Atlantic. Then you've got decent weather from the mid-Atlantic states. And actually, from inland of the coast, just a little bit past western New Jersey, you've got dry air and clear skies. And the nice weather extends all the way down into Florida. Now we've got clouds streaming out of the Pacific into Texas, and that's setting up that severe weather event for tonight, and also a separate shortwave trough there that's running up through the northern plains and into the western lakes, and you get that small little area of severe weather that we indicated for parts of Iowa and Wisconsin. And then it looks fairly quiet until you get up into the northwest, where there's some moisture coming in off the west coast. So nice to see. Every once in a while you need a break. Okay, you really do. You can't have major storms running around all the time, and this is as good a time as any to get into a bit of a break mode. So I'm going to move the radar, and of course we're watching this. By the way, it is 7:41 Eastern time. So bear that in mind if you are watching this later on a replay. The radars are obviously dated, as are the satellites, but with respect to severe weather, you want to go to your local National Weather Service office website, and you can access that by going to weather.gov so that you can get the latest watches, warnings, if any. And we don't have any working severe thunderstorm watches or tornado watches up at the moment. But on the radar, as of 7:41, there are a couple of what look like possible strong thunderstorms there moving into northeastern Illinois and in parts of southwestern Wisconsin and in through eastern Iowa. So that pretty much sizes up that marginal risk area. And then, of course, we have that marginal to slight risk in Texas. That hasn't gotten going yet. You got one cell that's popped up there in West Texas so far. But as we go through the rest of the evening and into tonight, I'm sure we're going to see some thunderstorms fire up down in the region where we have the slight risk. All right, so I take a swig of water there, keeping it handy with me while I'm doing these so I don't choke to death. So let's take a look at what's been happening. Going back to last week, of course, this was the last system and the last of the amplified systems in this particular series. You have the upper low drop way to the south. The northern part of the jet stream just kind of stayed separate, so this thing only was able to lift so far north, and that northern jet is just acting basically like a brick wall. So this upper low wound up reaching its peak intensity back on Friday night, and then starting from Saturday morning, it began to weaken. But one of the things that changed over time was that the models were too far north in lifting the upper low up into New England. It wound up going much further to the south, and it also, I think, weakened it too quickly. And here we have the upper low weakening, but still very much an identifiable feature going into last night and this morning. And you see how it just kind of turns around and then dives off the North Carolina coast. The upper low position is very close to the surface low right now. And usually you see the surface low is displaced to the east, but this is an instance where the systems have basically become vertical. They've become stacked. If we look at every layer of level of the atmosphere, you're going to find the lows roughly in the same spot. But the upper low itself continues to open up and weaken as it moves to the east. So that's why you're not seeing this low deepening in any way. It's just kind of getting ridden along. And there's another short wave, of course, that's approaching the western lakes here that's going through there now for tonight. and that's what's triggering off the severe weather. It's that little V shape that you see at southern Wisconsin and into northern Illinois, and then you've got that energy down at the southwest. That is what's going to be triggering the severe weather through Texas over the next couple of days, because it just kind of drops there into Mexico and sits there. Meanwhile, the shortwave in the lakes, the lead shortwave that's there tonight, just kind of moves into southeastern Canada. It doesn't do very much. There's a secondary push that comes in, and this is our front for later tomorrow night into early Wednesday morning that moves into the east. We're going to have a good day tomorrow. Might take a little longer for clouds to get out of the way, say at eastern Long Island or in southeastern New England, but overall, for just most of us, it's going to be a good day with sunshine and temperatures into the 70s. Now, we get this front that comes through, and if we go look at the overall pattern across the United States this week, it's just kind of west to east, fast, gentle flow. I'm sorry, when I say a fast flow, it's just what I mean is as you go further north, the jet is tighter. You're getting stronger winds across southern Canada. So it's just moving weather systems along. The southern part of the jet's moving a bit slower, but that area is getting suppressed to the south. You're getting systems in the northern stream. They're not phasing. They're just going to kind of move along. So out of this, with this westerly flow, and here we are by Sunday, you've got a jet that runs from Washington State to Montana to Minnesota to the Great Lakes to the northeast. It's just almost a straight line west to east. A couple of short waves there along the way, but nothing really dramatic. Nothing that digs down. And then, in fact, as we move through the last days of the month of April, and the models have been very consistent now, we're at day 7 here, with the idea of a ridge building in the eastern part of the United States in the long haul. Now, that I think, given the time of year, you have to be a little careful, because sometimes you get ridges that build in the east this time of year, amount to a surface high that's to your north, and you're playing games with an onshore flow. So you always have to leave that possibility open, that the ridge in the east in the springtime and early summer is not necessarily a good thing, but because you could get trapped into a situation with the wind coming in off the colder ocean. But I think what this is going to mean is that going into the first days of May, we're going to have weather systems moving along, but we should be able to string together a couple of decent days in a row with seasonal to maybe above average temperatures on the whole, until we can get some kind of trough to come down. Here's one that the models have at the end of the first week of May. We are, of course, this is 16 days from now, so who knows if that's how it's going to play. But I think the general trend is for a warmer than average temperature pattern to continue as we go through the long haul. So pull up the surface map for you and start back with what we have right now. Low pressure off the New Jersey coast south of Long Island. Low pressure in eastern Iowa. A little bit of precip down there in the southwest with that southern stream shortwave. And, of course, going into tomorrow, the Great Lakes low is in northern Michigan. Our low here to the east is southeast of Cape Cod. So by then it should be far enough away that we will see genuine improvement. And here comes your front for Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. Not a whole lot with it. Still getting severe weather issues across Texas until a little low comes out. We're okay here until about Friday, when we have another front to deal with that comes through. Little energy in the north. Southern energy gets suppressed. And then I think we're going to have a decent weekend. Saturday, probably the cooler of the 2 weekend days. Sunday, a little bit warmer. And then we've got another front that approaches for Sunday night into Monday. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of that with that, according to the GFS, and on it goes. Here's what I mean with respect to this time of year. High pressure, they like to get into southeastern Canada. You certainly could see ridging along the east coast with this, but there is a bit of an onshore flow that shows up during the last couple of days of April. In this instance, the models seem to want to set the onshore flow up near us and then push the warm front to the north, but we'll see. But the bottom line is, in none of this am I seeing any kind of big storm. Okay, there are no big storms here on the horizon for the next 10 days at least. The way the pattern is shaping up, and with regards to temperatures in general, we can take a look at the temperature anomalies tonight and see what they have to tell us. Of course, we're running starting with tomorrow, which should be a nice above average day. Wednesday, back to about average. Thursday looks like above average in much of the east. Friday starts to turn a little below average. That's because of the precip coming through. And then we got that shot of chilly air, quote unquote chilly air, for Saturday. It's a bit below average for Saturday, and then it comes right back and bounces for Sunday, only to only as we move into Monday, it starts to get cooler than average across the north. The jet stream pattern, remember, by the time we get to this point, it's pretty much a straight west to east flow. So you wind up with your warmer temperatures to the south relative to normal, cooler temperatures up to the north. If we overlaid the jet stream here, the upper pattern, you see what I mean. It's westerly flow across southern Canada. The flow is westerly across the U.S., but not quite as strong. And then you've got that ridge that builds into the east as we go into those last days of April and into the first days of May. Nice to have a calmer weather pattern around. I certainly am enjoying. The winter time, of course, keeps you darn busy, and you know by my live streams in the wintertime, and sometimes I can go very long. On the other hand, when we get to the spring, this is sort of my time of year, my time to be able to just kind of take a breather. So I'm actually welcoming the idea that there are no major storms running around, and I hope it stays that way for at least a little while, just to give me a bit of a break. If the ridge builds heading into May, what temperatures can we expect? 80s question mark, asks Keith James. Now that's a short range question, and that would depend on how strong the ridge. Where is the surface high? Is the surface high over Pennsylvania? Is it in Virginia? Is it off the Carolina coast? Is it up in New England? Because that's going to make a huge difference in terms of where temperatures are going or are going to go with regards to how high. So you really have to kind of wait to see what the short range is. But I would say there's a fair chance that we certainly could see some days where temperatures are at least well up into the 70s, and it really doesn't take very much to bring temperatures up above 80 this time of year if you get the right setup. Patricia Owens, the weather has been really pretty good here. It's been in the 60s, 70s, or in the 50s, which is really not that bad all week long with very little rain. So I'm very pleased with that. I'm so sick of the cold. Well, I totally get it. The spring, at least down for my zone, eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, is running according to the way spring should. It's a little bit above average in terms of temperature. That, of course, does not mean that you can't have temperature volatility. Of course, you're going to get temperature volatility. I'm sorry, Scott. I just read your question and it just kind of threw me off. I didn't expect it, but I'll come back to it in a second. You're going to have temperature volatility, but it really is all about the onshore flow. That really kind of squares it off in terms of whether you could have 80s versus 50s. Yeah, it is way too early, Scott. You notice an upper low spinning westbound in the central Atlantic. Can you take a look at it 2 months from now? Maybe something. All right, you know what? Because we got a little time tonight, I'm going to have to find it. But let's see. It is way early to even start looking at this stuff, just by the way, just so you know. But this is also a good time. If you go to NHC's website, nhc.noaa.gov, they've got a lot of stuff. I've just noticed, they've got the Hurricane Michael tropical cyclone report. As you remember last week, They in post-analysis, they upgraded it to a Category 5, which was no shock, considering the damage and some of the odds that were occurring right before landfall. But it's an interesting read. Now, here's what Scott was talking about. Now, that upper low is big, okay? I suspect, I'm just, without looking at any maps, but I would bet this thing goes all the way up to 200 millibars. So this is not, first, sometimes you can get these cold upper lows to gradually become tropical over time. But this, to me, looks like more something that goes all the way up in the atmosphere, up to 200 millibars, up to 25,000 feet and beyond. And actually, this would be a driver against tropical cyclone development in the heart of the season. When you have a big upper low at that level in the Atlantic, all that really does is create a ton of wind shear. But when we get there, we'll show you how these lows interact with these tropical systems. But one thing we can see right now, if you look down near South America, and with the GOES, it works pretty well, but you'll notice the low-level clouds, the low-level clouds are moving from east to west with the trades, and the high-level clouds are moving west to east. Okay, this is wind shear, and tropical systems do not like that. If you look in the Central Caribbean, you can see it really well. The high clouds moving from west to east, and the low clouds moving from east to west. It looks like there might be I'm not sure if that was a little batch of African dust that blew away. No, can't be. That must just be a reflection of the sunrise and the sunset moving along. But the shear was, it's pretty evident. So you get these periods in the tropical cyclone season where there's wind shear everywhere. And one of the things we're going to have to pay attention to is the state of the El Nino and the El Nino going forward, and whether that El Nino weakens. When I looked at ocean water temperatures in the Pacific, which I don't have time to pull up right now, but I did notice that there was a cold pool developing near South America and spreading northward. So if that continues, that could suggest that the El Nino has reached its peak and might be in the process of starting to weaken. So that's something that we're going to have to also pay close attention to, because the strength of the El Nino or lack of an El Nino is going to be a big player in terms of what kind of hurricane season we're going to have, be it active or non-active. All right, so I know, Johnny Quest, I saw that you were waterlogged. I think if I read correctly, you got another couple of inches. Michelle Henderson, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Trying to do my best. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fall a little short, but thank you. Ryan Ford, buddy, let's see. Can a forecaster pick out severe weather in the long range, or is that more of a small-scale, short-range weather event? Well, I would say this. I think last week was a good example of being able to see the dynamics in terms of where the risk is there. And I think you can do that in the longer range beyond, several days, and maybe go out to day 4 or day 5 and say, you know what, the dynamics look to be here for some kind of severe weather event. But the thing is, you're talking about a very small scale type event in terms of thunderstorms and tornadoes and so on. So I think you can identify an area that might be at risk in the longer range time frame, but that's really about as far as it goes. I think you have to really kind of wait until you get inside like the day 3 time frame if you want to get a bit more specific. On the other hand, this is another reason. This is one of the reasons why I've said, when you see that the Storm Prediction Center, when SPC is putting severe weather risks up on their day 5, day 6, day 7 time frame, they're doing it because they have from what they're seeing, there's enough evidence there to suggest that there's risk. Most of the time they'll put either no low risk or predictability too low. But if you see it show up, when you see it show up in their long range period, that's a pretty strong indicator that something is going to happen. Lord Kate is on tonight, jumping on late though because I'm just about getting ready to wrap it up here. But nice to see you as always. Welcome to Tim Gora. Chuck Cardillo, I hope you had a great Easter. Amy Hogan up in Maine. Mark G. Johnny Quest. James NASCAR. Patricia Owens and all the rest. Hope things went well for your holiday weekend. So let's wrap it up here. I think Mr. Rayo and I are refreshed enough from the weekend that we'll have a Joe and Joe Weather Show on Facebook tonight at 9:25 Eastern Time. And if you don't have Facebook, not to worry, because I will upload it up to YouTube when it's all said and done. And I really don't have too much else going on. So we'll just leave it at that. Thanks for being here, everybody. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you.